Hello everyone, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. Got some really nice lighting coming in the window today and wanted to make a quick video for you all. I always say that, we'll see how quick it turns out to be. And I wanted to talk to you about something that may not seem very significant, but it's your bobbin winding device and specifically your bobbin tire. Now, some of you will, when you're out scouting around and you're looking for vintage sewing machines, you may look at a machine and say, oh, does it have its bobbin winder? And whether it's a Singer, which is often they're up in this little area here, and they have different styles. If it's a new enough bobbin winder, it has a tire, what we call a tire. It's a little rubber ring that sits on the end. This happens to be, of course, the White Rotary you guys have heard me talk about lately. I'll be getting it ready for its debut and listing for sale soon. But one of the things you can do a quick test on when you're looking at a machine, you can certainly sit down and test the bobbin winder to make sure that it works. That's a good idea when you're looking at a machine. If you don't know much about sewing machines, or maybe you do know a lot about sewing, but you never, this is a new model to you, ask the seller if they know how. And if there's a manual, open the manual, it'll show you. And of course, you're going to loosen your clutch knob toward you, and then you are going to, again, this is going to disengage your needle. Let's make sure that's showing up. Yeah, so that when this turns, the needle should. Now you'll notice there's a little movement here with the needle. These machines are not exact. Okay, so in other words, this hand wheel is moving. Sometimes the needle will wiggle a bit, but it should not have a lot of high RPMs. Now, one of the things you can do is, even if you don't, let's say you didn't bring any thread with you. Oh shoot, I wanted to test the bobbin winder. There's a way to kind of check it out before you do so. It's not total foolproof, but it's better than nothing. So I have disengaged the clutch. I can do that very quickly. And now I'm going to, in the case of the white, I've got the lever here, and I'm going to push up. And when I turn this hand wheel, I should see the bobbin winder tire turning, okay? Because that's how it works. And as the bobbin tire engages the hand wheel, it helps it to turn its little shaft here where your bobbin is going to be hanging and spinning and getting its new thread wound on. So let's see if we have. I believe I've got her plugged in here, and I'm going to run the bobbin winder just so you can see it run, and then I'll explain why we're going to the trouble of just showing you this. Now, I'm running at a fairly low RPM. Let's go zoom in here for you guys so you get a close-up look. And this is an important feature. Now, some of you who have a lot of sewing equipment, or maybe you just do a lot of sewing, you may even have what's called a bobbin winding device. And that's a cool thing to have. That way, you don't have to set up your machine every time you want to wind a bobbin. If you don't have one, your machine was designed to do it. They do it in slightly different ways, but they're all pretty much the same. You disengage the needle, and now let me pan over, and you can see the bobbin winding tire is moving, the needle is not. Sometimes you, like I say, you'll get a kind of a little wiggle or a hop from your needle, but you just don't want the needle moving. Now, I can speed up. Now notice, I've got it at kind of a medium speed here. If I go faster, you can really wind that bobbin, but you can also run the risk of getting your thread too tightly wound on your bobbin, and as you may have guessed, that could interfere with thread tension, and this is true of any machine. It's not unique to this one. So, do you want to do this at a moderate speed? Okay. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you is that a couple of things can interfere with this basic function. One of those is, or could be, your spring, because the device that holds this bobbin tire to your hand wheel is not changing its angle at all. It's just going to spin when you apply your controller. Now watch, let's see if I've got you panned out enough. You can see what I'm doing here. Okay, I've got my thumb here on this lever, and I'm going to come down. You'll notice that this device here, this holder of the bobbin tire, it had moved down. Now I push up and it engages. It should stay engaged with the hand wheel. Okay, and it's not moving perfectly as I would like it to, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now sometimes the spring, whether it's one like you see on the White Rotary, or it could even be a spring up top if you're talking about a Singer or most other machines from the vintage period until they started putting them on top. That spring sometimes, very often has an adjustment on it, and if it's loose, you might for example, you might push this lever up and it might just flop on you, or maybe it waits until you go to wind and it just goes boom, and you can't get the tire to stay pushed against the hand wheel. Okay, it could be that the lever that you see me pushing, maybe that lever is just stiff because it hasn't been cleaned or oiled. Remember, these are all metal, and so when I was working on this, I put 1 drop of metal. Okay, and it's better to see from the side. When you look at the side, you will see. See if I can get my angle slightly. Okay, so you're sort of looking, here's the tire from the side. Just under here, I'm going to take the tire off and I'll explain why. Why we're only getting, you'll notice when I started to apply the controller for speed, this tire seems to be slipping a little. It was spinning, but it's being a little lazy, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. I can get her off. It's been on here a long time. I can't say this is the original, but this tire is not new. It's for a piece of rubber. It's kind of stiff, and it's fighting me. Get off there! Ah. Now I'm not forcing it because I'm not forcing a metal against metal. I'm just having to pull this tire off. They will come off, so don't worry if you have to struggle like I do. Now sometimes they may not even come off in one piece. Here you can see the tire I just took off, and I'll show you in a minute why it needs to come off. But I mainly also want to do this so maybe you get a better angle here. There is a little bolt head here, and if you come behind, now if you come on the other side, you will see down in here there is a hinge and a spring, and all you need to do is put some oil in here, and you'll know because this device will move readily for you. Okay, sometimes when you let the device down, you take the pressure off the spring because you want your bobbin tire to come away from the hand wheel. Sometimes it'll be lazy and it'll want to hang. That is either because now look, watch when I push down. See how powerful that is? The spring is healthy. The spring's not broken, it's not tired, it's working well, but the hinge that it slides on was stiff and it needed some oil. So now that I have oil in it, she works beautifully, but that can happen to you. The other reason you can have problems with this type of device is that the spring may have broken. I've had machines before where I thought, hey, I see the spring in there, because on a lot of the Singers you can see it from the side. Unfortunately, if the spring breaks, then it won't hold, you won't get any tension towards your hand wheel. Okay, so these devices are relatively simple, and they make, believe it or not, reproduction springs for these things. And so you can get springs for them. This one doesn't need one, but I wanted to kind of cover that with all of you. Now, one of the main reasons that you might have problems with getting your tire to turn, there are others. This is the bobbin tire I just took off, and from the front it just looked like a black rubber tire. But watch what happens if I hold it in my hand, and now I'm going to squeeze it. You guys see the cracks? Yeah, it's dry rotted. It's rubber. Rubber only has a certain lifespan. In fact, this one I was able to it came apart. It was that old. Now, sometimes you may see a bobbin tire that looks like it's in much better shape. This one does. In fact, it's a lot softer than the one I took off. But this is one I took off of another machine as well. So watch what happens, guys, when I squeeze this one. You guys see the little cracks forming? This one is not as old, okay? It's not as far along in its degradation as a piece of dry rotted rubber, but it can happen. Now, if I put this tire on my machine, there's a good chance it'll work, but I'm not going to do that. Bobbin tires are available. And if you all are just wanting to restore one machine, you don't need to keep. This is part of my my parts stash. But remember, I restore machines for other people. If you do, you might want to keep some of these and order a bunch at once. If not, once you get a bobbin tire for your machine and you just want to overhaul your own sewing machine, you should be able to get a lot of life out of it. I wouldn't worry about having to get extras. They last for years and years. But anyway, as I may have covered in the parts video, they come in different sizes, and it's not always obvious because the sizes are a little close. So I'm going to find one that's closest to my old one. So before you toss the old bobbin tire, you want to hold it and make sure, I want to tilt down, you can see what I'm kind of staring at here. On the right is the one I just took off, the one that was about to crumble. And by the way, sometimes you will get a machine and there won't be any tire at all. All you're going to see is that chrome, often it's a chrome little wheel pulley there, and that's all you get. And that's when you know you're going to have to get a bobbin tire. Most vintage machines take a fairly standard, when I say standard, there are several sizes that they take, but they're normally not exotic and not that difficult to come by. Okay, so I've got my original, that one's a little bit. You want to look at a couple of things. Look at the overall, see if the outside of the tire width lines up. Need to back out just a bit so you guys can see me. No, here we go. Okay, this new one's a tad bit smaller, but you also want to look at the width of the inner circle, right? Because if it's too tight, then you're gonna be stretching really. It's gonna be tough to get that on there. Let's see. There's a reason I sometimes order larger sizes. Some of the Berninas take an even larger size, and then these rotaries will vary. Okay, now I've got one. Here's a new one. That is, it looks like it's lining up fairly well. And again, it's going to be more flexible than the old one. Typically, for a lot of machines, there's a small, there's a medium, and a large size that I can get at my supplier. You may have to go other places online. As we go forward in time, the European companies started this first, and now all companies today, they have their own special, tires, and you have to, they're very proprietary now. But anyway, here's the new tire, guys, brand new. And it's a brand new rubber, and when I squeeze this, there are no cracks, right? It's a soft, healthy rubber. Now, I'll tilt up and let you guys watch me slip it on there. Now, sometimes, depending on what year your sewing machine was made, if you get into the 1960s, late 60s, early 70s, a lot of times the tire, if it's still on the front, there may be a shield over it. There may be, they kept covering stuff up as they went through time, and I'm not sure, I don't know, I have different theories about why they kept doing that, but it doesn't mean you can't service your machine. You just got to take the stuff off. You guys have seen me do that with the Janome. I have to take the cover off before I can get to the motor. But here we go. This is, again, you want to make sure this is moving. If this is stiff, and you will sometimes be that way on an old machine, if you found it's been sitting a long time, while the tire's off, you might as well go ahead and get this serviced. This has a little hole, and I put 1 drop of oil in there. But this machine was very well taken care of over its life. It has not been particularly stubborn in going through all of its paces for the reconditioning. So your tire goes on quite simply. It is sort of like putting a glove on your hand. So I'm going to take the tire from the back, and let's give you guys a little more of a side angle there. I'm just going to put it in the groove, and I'm literally going to just kind of pull it forward, and it just kind of it grabbed a hold of the pulley around itself. I mean, it's that simple. Now, if you need to take the newer one off, Obviously, I didn't have to struggle and grunt to get that off. But that's it, guys. Very important to be sure that you don't have oil on your hands when you do this, because if you have an oily bobbin tire, it's not going to get good friction with your hand wheel, and it's going to slip. No surprise there, right? So let me pan back out a little here, and then let's see how it does now when I'm going to press up, right? I've still got my clutch disengaged. We're not sewing yet. Now let's watch the bobbin tire and the hand wheel, and let's see how they play when I first start using the controller. Let's get the angle here. I want you guys to have a close-up. What I'm noticing is that when I hit my controller, this machine has a knee controller, I don't have any slipping, right? I can even start real slow, and the bobbin tire starts to move as soon as the hand wheel does. Before, the old one, it was kind of slipping. It was kind of being fussy about playing along with the hand wheel here, because when rubber gets hard, and it will actually sometimes develop a kind of a sheen on it, but when it gets hard, it doesn't. It's almost like bad tires on a car. It just doesn't have the grip it did when it was new and soft. Now, in the next video, I'm going to show all of you a way to not only improve the friction of your Bobbin Winder tire, we're also going to talk on this machine specifically about your friction pulley and how to get the most friction out of it, because remember, the friction pulley with its little rubber covered pulley in the back, it also engages with your hand wheel. So you have two different things that can use the hand wheel to get their motive power. And I'll show you a little trick on how to get the most out of that, because you may notice sometimes when you are using any of these machines that use the friction drive, sometimes they will want to slip and sputter before they get going, and they're not giving you the full power because they're not getting as much friction as they could have. So thank you for watching. Yes, I guess there is a reason to make a video about bobbin tires. If any of you have questions about a specific bobbin tire on your machine, if it's a vintage machine, let me know in the comments. Share your own thoughts, or if you see anything here that that you've done and had success with, let me know. And so appreciate all of you watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care.